is quite impeachable. But you equally look at the comment Speaker of the House of Representatives. As much as he has said, the president's directive is not to the benefit of the country, and he has said it wasn't nice for the federal government to act in ways that suggest a disregard for the rule of law. He equally described President Buhari's directive as a step in the right direction. So it looks like as much as the other arms of government are not so comfortable with the president's directives or actions, they haven't really come out to stare him in the face and say, what you're doing is absolutely wrong. Just like the move made by Governor Nasser El-Rufai, who has insisted that the old notes will continue to remain legal tenders in a state. The other arms of government seem to be shying away from doing so, including the Supreme Court. I asked the question a short while ago. Yes, the Supreme Court has ruled that the old notes remain legal tenders, but in the face of the presidential directive, can we just say we have to wait until February 22nd before we get further insight as to what the Supreme Court will do?
You see, what Mr. President has done with respect to him is to resort to self-help. If you read through the 16-paragraph address that he presented, you will find where he said, haven't consulted widely, haven't sought opinion. He is also aware that some court in the land has made pronouncements. That is just like a wave of hand. He did not mention specifically the Supreme Court, which is the apex court of the land's pronouncement. He just dismissed those pronouncements as a mere pronouncement. And having heard all this, his decision is based on the advice. Who must have advised him to go against the court of the land? The president is a repository of advice. People advise him here and there. But the final position, the final statement must be made by him. And whatever pronouncement he makes becomes the presidential position. So I think that some state governments, some institutions like you have mentioned, the National Assembly, might not toe the line of National El-Rufai, which is leading us to a serious crisis in the land, because you not use one wrong to solve another wrong. It is now sub judice. It is now before the Supreme Court. The court has asked the parties to address it on the issue of jurisdiction. And the court has adjourned to Wednesday next week, 22nd. Why is the president in a haste to preempt the court? Why didn't the president just say, okay, we have obeyed the court order by allowing these three notes, the 200 naira note, the 700 naira note, and the 1,000 naira note, to continue to operate till the court makes pronouncement on the 22nd, because the parties have joint issues. The federal government has also joint issues in the matter. So they are aware that the matter is coming before the Supreme Court on Wednesday. So what he has done now is to preempt the court position by saying, we have now authorized, or I'm authorizing, that only 200 naira notes, the legal tender. The rest of the notes, remains, unlawful tender against the Supreme Court provision. What will the president lose if he accepts to say, okay, let the currency continue to operate pending the court pronouncement, final pronouncement? So the president is simply taking action that will lead the country to a serious crisis. Imagine having Kaduna State using a different currency. You have other states like Kogi State that is in the street, and all the states that are in the street choosing to operate with different currency in their own states. And those currencies are legal tender in their own states. Imagine what will become of the Nigerian entity. Imagine what becomes of our unity as a country. So it's definitely that the federal government has failed in making monetary policy that will be governed in Kaduna State and other states. So that is why I am saying that even though the other institutions, the other agencies might not toe the same line of National El-Rufai, which is to simply obey the Supreme Court order. Because what National El-Rufai has said is to simply obey what the Supreme Court has said, that the currency remains legal tender pending till the final pronouncement. So National El-Rufai has not breached any law. He is simply obeying what the Supreme Court has said. Now, could you imagine how it would be if other states carry the same argument, carry the same line of Rufai? You would not see crisis. So the president's action is a complete affront to our constitution and to our democracy. So for me and for CHRAN, the best option for him is to withdraw that address and apologize to Nigerians.
On the last line on this one, shouldn't we be concerned now that we've heard some statements, although we cannot independently verify how true, that the CBN has actually destroyed the old 1,500 naira notes? So in the event that we have, let's say, a Supreme Court ruling next week that insists that both notes should run concurrently, and then the presidency decides to give in, at what point do we start reprinting the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes that have purportedly been damaged or, in the CBN's words, burnt already? So even for the states that have said they would comply with the Supreme Court ruling, like Kaduna, I mean, for the notes that have already been returned, I mean, how are you going to recoup a bulk of those notes, knowing that you hardly have any of them around, and then we're still having massive scarcity of the new notes? We really are in a fix here. Wouldn't you agree?
No. We are not in a fix. The Supreme Court of Nigeria is a court of justice and court of public policy. What the Supreme Court has simply done is to gauge the reaction, is to gauge the crisis in the land, is to gauge the burning of bank facilities, protests here and there, people killing themselves, naming and talks, while bankers and the rest, the bankers who have become immediate specific in the face of this policy. And so the Supreme Court simply came up with a position that let peace be returned by saying status quo ante bellum be maintained until we make a pronouncement. So the federal government, whether the CBN, had destroyed the 500 note, the 1,000 note, as they claim to have done so, they should order the banks to accept it. Nigerians who have it in their possession should continue to use it, should continue to take it to the bank, and the bank should accept it. The Supreme Court didn't tell the government to print old 500 to print the old currency. It simply say, let it be legal tender. If you have destroyed the ones you have destroyed, the ones in the hands of Nigerians continue to remain legal until the court makes the final pronouncement. You see, this whole thing is centered on politics. The president is simply, allowing his mindset of saying, I want to bequeath a free and fair election. I want to, change the narrative of not allowing anybody to buy vote. This argument for me doesn't stand in the face of the law. I stand with what the law has said. And if the Supreme Court, which is the apex court of the land, says, let this currency remain legal tender, it should be legal tender. These justices are Nigerians. They are also passing through what Nigerians are passing through. They also have their family members who go to the market and the rest. If you do a survey, you would have seen the people who have died in the face of this hardship, people who have died in the face of this scarcity, people who depend on drugs, who don't have money to get drugs, who don't have money to feed. This morning I spoke with my bankers. They said they are paying only 2,000 naira of the 200 naira notes that has been approved. What happened to the new currency that the government has redesigned? It's not there. Yesterday, I had to go to my bank, and I queued for several hours only to get 5,000 naira off the old 200 naira note. What happened to the new currency? Where is it? So, simply put, the currency, like the CHRAN has said, like we have said, is the redesign is a fantastic idea, but it is poorly implemented, which is why we are having this crisis in our hands. And so, to mitigate this suffering, to salvage the situation, the Supreme Court, which is the apex court of the land, has made a pronouncement which should be obeyed.
All right, interesting. Just before we let you go, CHRAN has equally urged the Nigerian police to maintain its neutrality in the course of the 2023 elections, which barely comes up 7 days from today. Can you give us further insights on the position of your group with regards to the notice that you have, or the appeal that you have made to the Nigerian police as the election approaches.
Yeah, you see, the Nigerian police is a key stakeholder in having a free and fair election in Nigeria. Recently, I think the IGP has approved the deployment of 400,000 policemen to man elections, to man the various polling units, and to also provide security for elections. And so we believe, the CHRAN believes that the action of the policemen could make or mar our election. If the police is not neutral, if the police is partisan, if the police is biased in their involvement in policing this election, it could lead to the outcome being considered not fair, being considered not credible, being considered not free. And so what the Center for Human Rights in Akwa Ibom did yesterday was to engage the CP, who is the chief police officer in Akwa Ibom State, and discuss with him and also engage him for him to know that the police has a critical role to play in us having free, fair, and credible. And so we appeal to him to sensitize his men, to educate his men, to exhibit unqualified neutrality throughout the process of the election, so that the outcome will be acceptable to all the parties involved. That is the only way out for us to have a better Nigeria.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so very much, Franklin Isam, for joining us on the floor of plenary today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and the leader of the Parliament.
All right, thank you very much as well. That was Coordinator CHRAN, Akwa Ibom State, and is more or less positing the side of the Supreme Court to have said, allow the old and the new notes to continue running. And I think that's the hope Nigerians are actually having, that the Supreme Court would stand by their verdict when they reconvene for February 22nd, make that Wednesday next week. Just 3 days to go before Nigerians head out to cast their vote at the election. So, Mr. Speaker, it's really worrying that all of these are happening around the electioneering period. And again, we'll always make reference to when President Buhari said the essence of this policy, too, was to prevent people from mopping up resources to truncate the electoral process, which seems to be the case. Yesterday we saw different rallies here in the state. I was listening to a lot of persons coming back from most of these rallies, and I heard someone say one particular candidate is now doing transfers. I don't want to mention the name of the candidate in question, but it happened around the back axis, and they say they are now doing or resulting to transfers. And I asked myself, how many persons at that rally would be able to have cash transferred to them just because they turned up to show some level of support for their would-be candidate when they head out to the polls? So clearly, the scarcity of cash would likely have an effect on how the polls turns out. But it begs the question, if we agree that this policy is actually good and that the long-term benefits would equally not just promote the electioneering system in the country, but would do away with negative vices that have pervaded the growth of governance in Nigeria. Yes, we know the implementation is poor, but why would most persons make themselves susceptible to being induced wrongly for things that they shouldn't? Perhaps we'll talk about that, Kinley, when we come back from this break, and also get in more of your reactions. Let's go for a short break. The BBC World in 2 minutes comes up. We'll be right back after this. Please stay with us.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. A Chinese businessman who's considered to be one of the country's most successful technology deal makers has been reported missing. The private investment bank China Renaissance has announced that it has been unable to contact its founder and chief shareholder, Baofan, for several days. The annual Munich Security Conference begins in Germany today, bringing together leaders and diplomats, mostly from Europe and North America, to discuss global security issues. For the first time, no Russian officials have been invited. Latest figures from Russia show that spending on new cars in the country fell by just over 50% last year. Western sanctions introduced after the invasion of Ukraine caused production to plummet and prices to soar. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is due to hold talks today with the main political parties in Northern Ireland. He's visiting the province as speculation grows that the United Kingdom is close to agreeing a new deal with the European Union on post-Brexit trading arrangements. The leaders of Colombia and Venezuela have met to revive a trade agreement between the two countries. Presidents Gustavo Petro of Colombia and Nicolás Maduro of Venezuela signed the agreement in a ceremony on a border bridge. Cuba's state-owned telecoms company Edet has said that a power outage on Thursday night cut cellular telephone and data services across much of the island. The former president of a major Japanese advertising agency has admitted bribing a member of the Tokyo 2021 Olympic Organizing Committee executive. Shinichi Ueno admitted giving just over $100,000 to Haruki Takahashi to influence the committee's marketing division. And the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Chris Hipkins, has said he expects more deaths to be announced in the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle, which has devastated parts of the North Island. BBC News.
The world in 2 minutes.
It's rising like the sun and shining forth, sustaining life like never before. It will never set. The Planet Radio Station, 101.1, Uyo, Nigeria. This is the place to be.
Dear listener, we exist because you're always there, and without you, there is no us. We appreciate your sustained loyalty and remain committed to creating content tailored to meet your everyday media needs. And on this note, starting this January, you will be noticing some changes in our programming. Planet Radio 101.1 FM Uyo, revolving around you.
Iyo, ngoma bubukere nemdum iba, iragamdibu iba nemdum ita. Bangutong kap, bangutong gubsembitang, se uso top media group, Bunsinia Planet FM Spectrum Television, manis yung finito. Makiri tang 102.7 FM. Sinaman sa sangan tumke korado ke ta frepen bosebinam. Abido ki ko gangan. Anyam ke sebo ki ko makara all indigenous language radio station. Mena mebo Top Media Group. A packet of Planet 101.1 FM. Ayori baro Spectrum Television. Ayori tarum tang 102.7 FM. Ekene tang. Iyame bento biegado.
Amapiano and Afrobeats, they dine together. The two giants, Niger and South East show. Plenty drama, romance, cameras 247. Come see where Yawa the gas Yawa.
Make on cash all the excitement on Top Go TV Jolly, Max and Super on Channel 29. Reconnect today on my Go TV app or dial star 288 hash. Big Brother Titans now for people who don't reach or pass 18 years old. Our headline sponsors now Bamboo, Flutterwave and Lotto Star.
My people, no let new naira and cashless matter worry you. Hope Bank day your phone, 500 naira a week day. So if you want send mama money, I be to buy a Maka recharge card. To give customer money, a big customer won't give you money. Hope day your phone, 500 naira a week day. My people, your phone number, na ATM card and account number. Oh.
Yes, so enjoy better life with Hope Wallet. Dial star 569 star 9 hash on your phone. Select Open Wallet. Put your details and fiam. Your wallet done set. Hope PS Bank go summer you 500 naira a week. Terms and conditions there. Hope. Succeed. Hope Bank always.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon. In line with our vision to become and remain a constant choice of information dissemination and public enlightenment, as well as propagate quality broadcasting, TAF Media Group, the umbrella body of Planet Radio, Tangshu FM and Spectrum Television, is glad to announce the existence of our one-stop feedback channel where questions and concerns about our policies and programming can be channeled. In this wise, legitimate and responsible queries and complaints will be entertained via these platforms for swift responses. Call, SMS or reach us via WhatsApp on 0916-984-0307 or send us an email on tafmediagroup1@gmail.com.
Glad to welcome you back. If you just joined us, this is the People's Parliament, and it's about time for us to start entertaining your calls. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, the House Leader. Good morning, our generation. The gospel state in Abakwara Sibom. Please, for God. We've seen the whole thing I've been saying now. Everything is coming to materialize. See what the president has caused for the whole country. One man. It's a shame, a very big shame. Now, if the governor of Kaduna State will now ask his people to continue to use the money, what do we think? Yesterday, somebody told me, there's a market in Uyo along Tiam, along what do you call it, around Tiam, they call it the Hausa market, that they're still collecting the old notes. Can you imagine that? And I had to get there to see by myself. Those of them are still collecting it. Can you imagine then what is going on in the country? So please, that's what the Dakada is all. But when I talk like this, some may not even understand what I'm talking. When you don't do the right thing, you create problem. And you create problem not only for yourself, for other people. And God doesn't like that. That's why he said, suffer not a wish to live. Why is he saying so? Because they are so wicked, they don't care whether others are feeling fine or not. So provided they carry out their wicked works.
Is right, Parliamentarian.
This came in Ubangabasi. God wants us to live according to his glory, not according to how we were made, how we were formed by God.
All right, thank you. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary. Hello, good morning. Okay, sorry, we lost connection there. Please try and connect us back, and as soon as you do, we'll be delighted to take your call. House Leader, take us through some of the comments we have shortly after this. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Greetings to you, Mr. Speaker, and the leader of the Parliament.
Welcome.
This Congress Major Ogo, I'm calling from Suleiman.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, on the issue of this trending naira redesign, Mr. Speaker, I stand with the president 70%. Because what will happen is that after election, the people that are the pharmacists and people having chemists, they will cash out because they sell more of hypertensive drugs for some of our selfish politicians, because many of them, they will return home. Because I know, although what people are passing through, I'm included, I'm a Nigerian. I know so many Nigerians are on the stage now of comatose. But I think we should try and endure, because we are trying to, I know they are trying to change things, although the timing is bad. But I think the governor of Kaduna State, Rufai, should be investigated, because the way he's taking these things, like there's something that is not telling us, apart from pretending that he's fighting for the masses from the people that is leading. Because why are they so interested in this issue of a redesign of Nigeria, naira? The issue of the killings and actual strikes and insecurity was trending. I've not seen any governor taking the federal government to the court. But why is it that this one that's so interesting? So I'm just I'm just praying that God should keep us alive. Just see how the whole thing will pan out. And lastly, the speaker, I'm sure maybe you have seen the breaking news that the name of the Babansan, that's Michael, have been replaced with Pastor Moino on the INEC portal. You can log in and verify that. I just saw it this morning. I think that nobody. That's why I started my statement by saying that we should the chemists and the pharmacists should prepare for more hypertensive drug, because many of our politicians they will get more hypertension.
Thank you very much. But you can't say politicians will have high blood pressure or hypertension. That's not a good wish for anybody, regardless of the scenario. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what happened that the thing went off this afternoon in your mother.
All right, briefly, please.
I'm grieved of our country, which I love so much, and I still love him because Christ died for all of us to become what we do.
Your line is breaking, Parliamentarian.
Why should people be losing the money they have earned money they work for? Or maybe decide to then if you don't even obey the cost of the land. And then he went out the other time and exposed Nigeria to the world. And we invest in those who are investors who want to come to invest in Nigeria. That he doesn't rely on the cost, Nigerian cost.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning, the leader of the House.
Good morning to you, welcome.
And calling from Edet.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, if you are a father, then you have a kind of authority in your family. Your children will take you serious. So when you try to show less good example, your children will not take you serious. In terms of this monetary change that we are having in Nigeria, I think even me, because the Supreme Court has reduced themselves to not being taken serious again. Look at their judgment. Look at the judgment of Governor Nimo. Look at the judgment of senators or some people that are standing as a candidate in various parties. APC candidate of governor, our former governor, Senator Godswill Akpabio. APC candidate of Borno State of Ahmed Lawan. Their judgment is conflicting. They are not serious, and that is why our president is not taking them serious. We are suffering. This currency is really affecting us. It's affecting me more. My business is running down. But why will our president take this Supreme Court order serious when they are giving conflicting judgment? This is the right time that our Supreme Court judges should take this upon themselves to correct all these anomalies so that they will be taken serious. Thank you for having me, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thanks for joining us. Back to your house later. Please help us with some of the comments we have on our Facebook page.
Yes, today, let's go to the Facebook page, Planet Radio 101.1 FM. Uyo Hopamore Jr. says it is pathetic that this government has decided to punish Nigerians, not minding the sorrows of its citizens. If all of this has nothing to do with politics, why would the CBN and the federal government not allow the old notes to be used or deposited gradually until it goes into oblivion? Do they expect people to throw away the money they have when they can't have access to a new note? Think about those in the interior villages. I don't think this may go well. Udemega Ebu says, Mr. Speaker, the CBN as a body has been empowered by law to redesign the currency. The implementation of the latest one is very poor, but I think with the shifting on grounds by the federal government to allow the 200 naira old notes to still be in use, we should support the government to achieve the aim of redesigning the currency in the first place, which is to curb vote buying. It's a temporary inconvenience. In a month's time, things will fall back to place. Thank you. Interesting. Noya Idiong says, good morning, parliamentarians, and happy weekend to you all. Governor of Kaduna State urging his people to still collect the old notes and also insisting that if Tinubu is elected, we'll change back. It says, what if Tinubu does not win? Will he take responsibility of old naira notes from the owners? And for President Buhari's stance on the naira note, It says it was somehow, but I wish Mr. President extended the deadline for returning of those notes to the CBN in a month's time. Okay, there's still a window for the old notes to still be returned, by the way. That was clearly stated in yesterday's nationwide broadcast and the circular that was issued by the CBN a few days ago. So the only difference here is that the 500 and the 1,000 naira notes are no more legal tenders, but it doesn't mean you cannot return them. So you can still return the old notes in your possession. However, the big concern for most Nigerians here is the CBN's policy of and the measures they put in place as to how you can return those notes, which many persons have said is too stringent, too difficult for persons to comply with, and the deadline that was equally set. And that's one of the things we didn't see from the president broadcast yesterday, whether Nigerians should still abide by the CBN's directive in that circular, which gave only 3 days, February 15 to February 17, which makes that today. So I don't know if that deadline will be effective or Mr. President would have waived that. But it seems to me, from my understanding of what he said yesterday, the window is still open up until April 10th for people to continue returning their old notes. All right, Anekan Edem says, good morning, parliamentarians. We all know our Nigerian police. Okay, I cannot take this particular line because it's quite insulting on the Nigerian police force. We always advise you to please moderate your comments when you join in. Emmanuel Willie says, please, we're dying of hunger. Let the government look at this thing again. Okay, we hope they will. UK says, good morning, Mr. Speaker and parliamentarians. The speech by President Buhari announcing the old 200 naira notes still be considered as a legal tender comes with mixed feelings. I think it would have been better if the old and the new 500 and 1,000 naira notes were allowed to run simultaneously too. The FG got it wrong this time. I understand that the idea is to encourage a cashless Nigerian society and also curb the menace of vote buying, but then when the appropriate structures aren't put in place, citizens tend to suffer. Yesterday I trekked from Ibn Plaza down to Ibiano local government area. Goodness me. All right, so it's because of the scarcity of the new notes. POS operators are no longer in operation, and if you're lucky to find one, the rate is extremely exorbitant. Can you imagine one withdrawing 1K for 500 naira? Where are we headed? I suggest the FG and the CBN should have a rethink on this note policy. Nigerians have borne a lot. All right, let's quickly take this one. Samuel Work says, the naira redesign has brought one of the most lingering saga, disagreements, confusion, disrespect, and disobedience among the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, and the central bank itself. The Supreme Court has its own say, the presidency is saying something else, and the CBN and commercial banks also have their own stand. Since the advent of this administration, this is the first time a policy or decision of this magnitude has gone to the level of affecting both the rich and the poor negatively. The reason for the entire process has been defeated, and it looks more of an anti-people now. As it stands, we're in a dilemma. We do not know who to obey or follow because everyone looks confused. Nigeria needs God's intervention. I couldn't agree more. We're in a state of confusion at the moment. Everyone keeps saying respect the rule of law, but some are equally asking, especially for the layman. And how do you explain to the understanding of a layman that the president who is in charge of the country cannot override a decision of the Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land, cannot override the decision of the presidency? That is the state we've found ourselves, and it's quite worrying too that no one seems to care.
It's quite a worrisome situation, very worrying at that. And of course, at the INEC portal here, a lot of questions have been coming, just like the parliamentarian have raised. But I'd like to always ensure that we get verification of this fact. I'm currently just going through INEC's portal where the list of all the governorship candidates for the respective parties have been posted. We just take a few calls while trying to upload that. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, parliamentarian.
Good morning, my brother in the studio. This is Joe calling from you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say that right from the beginning, I've never seen a policy led by the president that has been totally implemented and be enjoyed by the citizens. I know that It's not just because the policy is bad or wrong. All of them had good intention. But the people that did not love the president in government, people that say that they are those that are supposed to be in that position, fight against him. And this makes the citizens to suffer. I want to say that irrespective of the fact that they may succeed that position, they should know that there is repercussion. What you do to somebody, you deserve to receive the same. So I feel all people that are fighting the president know that when they go to the same position, they will be on fire. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks for joining us. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Mr. President. And good morning, the other one in the studio. My name is Suwam. I'm calling from you. I want to say that, this country is a secretive, lawlessness country. What I mean by was that why President Muhammad Buhari was not obeying the law of Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court said they are joining the case hearing till 22nd of this month. But why the President was disobeying the law of the highest in the land? That is executive lawlessness. It started from the top. President and the Supreme Court, who is the highest one that should be quick, verdict that people should be follow. I think it is happening like this. He didn't put in the leadership roles quality when he left the office, because the other one should be follow the suit. It should be have a heart of people that suffering in this country. I don't understand. Coming to my state, upon all this issue of cashless policies, in our state government here, doesn't come and say anything. Why? Why some other state will come to comfort their people in the state? I'm telling this, I don't know why something is going on like this. Our state government is so silent for all this issue. It was the banker. It should come and comfort our people in the state rather than silent. I didn't like it. Let him come and say something to the people. Even in the crisis of the fuel scarcity, he didn't say nothing. To motivate the task force to go to the station and confirm about what's going crazy. Other states has been saying lower. The one we are here higher. I don't like it. Thank you. God bless you all day.
God bless you too for joining us. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary. Please turn down the volume of your radio set or walk away from it before we can get to have these conversations on the floor of the House. And like I said earlier, some parliamentarian called in a few minutes ago to allege that Babantan Mike Kenyong has been replaced on the INEC official portal. And inside of INEC media WhatsApp group, there's been a back and forth argument. And remember, we'll always say we want to confirm and verify before we bring anything to your notice. And just looking through INEC's portal, the reality on ground is that Pastor Umoino is still on the list as the governorship candidate of the PDP. And of course, just forwarded that to our social media. They'll help us put it up so you can verify. So forget about some of the links reportedly carrying the exchange of the name is not opening. So whoever doctored that list needs to sit back and try to not bring about fake news, which is one of the things that we have consistently talked against in the floor of the House. Well, let's of course, just take one more call and then we'll call it a wrap on the floor of the House this morning. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the plenary.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, parliamentarian.
Good morning, the leader. My name is Annie Michaels. I'm calling from you.
Welcome.
Thank you. The current situation we find ourselves with regards to the currency swap, the new naira notes with the old and all that is, I think the CBN and the federal government are finding themselves in a constitutional issue that we're trying to wriggle out with the back and forth of arguments for this, what is right, what is wrong, in the whole thing. Next, the punt, because the suffering is much, but in as much as that is appreciated, we also must understand some who are insisting on trying to have their switch as their successor, have kept a lot of money out of the vault of the banks, in billions. And the only way this has to be checked has to be that the citizens must go the way they have to go. So I will not blame the Mefele. You also look at the laws, the act establishing CBN from 1958 to 69 to 1991 to 2007. You see, there's a whole lot of independence attached to the Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN governor, for instance, cannot even be a chief, cannot even be a pastor, cannot be anything. He just has to work absolutely to ensure that. So we must understand the situation that the Central Bank has found a lot of cash out of the banking system. And the only way to retrieve it is to adopt this policy of redesigning the naira. That's a bit, we beg Nigerians, including myself, to be patient so that we can, at the end of the day, achieve the goal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. And that's how much we can take for today. And yes, also ensure that no matter what you do, before you bring up news, that you verify. The INEC portal has just read out. Is just about, it was posted last on the 10th of this month. So that's about the latest update on the INEC portal. So please ensure that you do not become an agent to spread fake news at the detriment of Nigerians, which is something we do not want to see. Ensure that you guard your PVC jealously, because that is the one thing that will ensure you get to vote your candidate of choice. My name is Francis Edet, and on behalf of myself and the House Leader, we're saying a big thank you to you for always being there. And God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless the Kwabam State. Let's vote wisely and get to choose our leaders wisely. Bye-bye. Do have a lovely day.
Nigeria hasn't always justified
It's rising, rising like the sun and shining forth, sustaining life like never before. It will never set. The Planet Radio Station, 101.1, Uyo, Nigeria. This is the place to be.
we are that turning point generation. We are Nigeria. We are the future.
We are the future. We are the dream. We are the nation. We are part of this. Yes, we are so amazing. That's the least we shall be. At the heart of a nation, changing history. How can they say that we are finished? We have just begun. When we have nowhere else to run to, we have nowhere else to go. So it's the way out of the way of the land of our dreams. We are the nation, we are part of this. Oh, oh. We are the nation, we are part of this. Whoa, carry the song, carry the sound. The future is here. The future is here. Goodbye yesterday, tomorrow is now for a taking. The future is here. The future is here. I am the future, I am the future, I am the dream. Whoa, I am the nation, I am part of this. Yes, I am so amazing. The least I shall be, least I shall be. The nation changing history. I'm the best. So get out of the way of the land of my dreams. I am the nation, not a part of it.
Good morning. This is the news update at 10. President Muhammadu Buhari says security and corruption at stake with new cash policy. Federal government of Nigeria to spend $954,000 loot in Bayelsa Hospital. NECO releases 2022 SSC results and laments increased malpractices. Resident of Okano West 1 in the Senodem local government area celebrate commissioning of water project donated by PDP candidate for a Senodem state constituency, Prince Okpong Akpabio. The stranded Uyo resident recount more gory details of experience following CBN's insistence on old naira note deadline. On the foreign scene, Russia expels Australian diplomat in tit-for-tat move. In sport, Barcelona and Manchester United draw at Camp Nou in intense Europa League playoff first leg. And that's the news updates for this hour. I am Dara Odoma. Up next is the Right Platform.
Information and entertainment make a good collabo. On Planet Radio 101.1 FM.
It's another beautiful Friday morning. I'm so excited to welcome you on another edition of the Right Platform. For our first timers, the Right Platform is that program designed to x-ray the development in our dear state. I am Treasure Esop, your host. Our focus today will be on the agricultural sector. Agriculture is a sector that not only provides food and raw materials, but also employment opportunities for a large population. And one of the signature statements of Governor Dorimano has been that we should eat what we grow. Little wonder he embarked on policies of ensuring food sufficiency in the state. It promises to be educative and revealing. Stay tuned and enjoy the program.
This is the Right Platform. There is something magical about great and successful leaders. They are often guided by divine intuition to build a safe abode ahead of rainy days. When the rains finally come, the people hardly feel the adverse effects. This is the beautiful story that decorates the fertile agricultural sector that has germinated and grown the boom of food sufficiency in Akwa Ibom State. A man with rare foresight and unprecedented creativity, Governor Dom Emmanuel, on assumption of office, caused a cherished revolution in the agricultural sector. His drive towards agricultural revolution and food sufficiency necessitated the opening up of all the hinterlands with the mission of creating access to the rich agricultural prospects across Akwa Ibom State and other areas of comparative advantage. This redeeming wind blew across various local government areas such as Ini, Uborakara, Uruan, Oron, and others. Such critical opening up preceded and gave rise to the flourish and boom in agricultural activities in those areas. The Technical Committee on Agriculture and Food Sufficiency, the Foreign Direct Investment Committee, comprising indigenous eggheads, have worked hand in gloves with the State Ministry of Agriculture and Women Affairs to coordinate the agricultural renaissance and diversify the economy of the state. Their efforts, in line with the terms of reference spelled out by the governor, helped facilitate the acquisition of new improved seedlings of cocoa, maize, and rice, as well as fast-tracked improved plantain and cassava productions. Cocoa production received a special attention through the training of farmers on modern skills to embark on a cocoa maintenance scheme, and only recently distributed agrochemicals, knapsack sprayers to all cocoa farmers. This initiative ripened the successes and prosperity in cocoa production. The state has suddenly become the largest cocoa producing state in Nigeria.
I want to thank God for bringing His Excellency Misudom Gabriel Emmanuel to Akwa Ibom State as the governor, because since he took over the mantle in 2015, we have seen so many developments in the sector of agriculture. In the state, I want to say that Governor Emmanuel is #1 farmer, because he's not a governor that encourages people to go and farm, but he does the farming too. He has his own farms and so on. The governor, His Excellency Misudom Gabriel Emmanuel, has done a lot. Akwa Ibom State has a fertile soil that can, accept so many crops. And even with this fertile soil, our farmers in the different local government areas, they plant the crops that they have a comparative advantage. As I'm speaking now in Nigeria, Akwa Ibom State is the largest cocoa producing state in the country.